going to show you how I use these presets. I've got like a few images, so this video might be a little long, but I want you guys to be able to see in depth how to tweak these, how to use these. Big thing is that no preset you buy is going to be one click and done. Everybody shoots so differently, uses light differently. Once you figure out what works for you, presets are going to be very easy for you to tweak. You're going to know exactly what you're going to go for. You're going to know your habits, what you prefer. And I find that I'm adjusting the same things no matter whose preset I'm using. Just because I like my images a certain way, presets are a great starting point for you. They should never ever be a one click and done. You definitely want to make them your own. So we're just going to start. We're going to go through each of these. Let's start here. Let's put number 5 on. I really like the warmth this one gives. My presets are going to lend and work better towards images that are outdoors and feel light filled with sun in the background. And so far I like it, but it's a little warm. So I'm going to come down to my white balance and I'm going to just pull it towards the blue. Just a smidge. I might open up the shadows. Let's see, maybe add a little bit more contrast. I'm going to go over back to my presets and hit lens correction to see if I want that natural vignette taken off. I actually like it with the lens vignette, so I'm going to keep it at that. Let's go ahead and go to this one. This image is by Ali and Garrett. They are amazing wedding photographers. So we're just going to kind of go through these and see which one we like the most. And of course, every one preset is not going to work the same way on 2 images. So it may look great on one image, it may look not so great on another, just because of the colors. So let's put I really like number 1. I would maybe take my clarity down. You can see right here to soften it up a little bit, increase my exposure a tad, and then watch these highlights and bring those down just to bring the detail back in. And that's about it. So that's the before and that's the after. Let's go ahead and go to this one. This image is by Megan Simpson. She's an incredible photographer. Let's do, I really like 4. So we're going to put 4 on there. We're going to increase the exposure. We're going to adjust the highlights a little bit. And that's pretty much about it. Let's see. There's the before and there's the after. Yeah, I'm going to keep it like this. Okay, next up. My little guy on our trip last week. Let's see. This one might be one click and done. This is preset number 9. So if I was to do this one, I would probably just adjust the clarity a little bit and watch. You can see on his cheeks the highlights are a little too bright, so I'm gonna bring that down, and that's about it. But let's mess around with another one that needs some more adjusting. So let's put, this is a great example. So let's reset it and let's put preset number 2 on. So obviously this isn't working. It's a little too bright. So we're just going to bring down the exposure, bring down his highlights on his cheeks again, and probably it's a little green, so I might add a little purple back into it. And then I'm also going to I have these fine-tuned presets, the green. These 2 are going to adjust your greens. So if I am not loving how neon the greens are, I can go to this tune number 2, the Goodbye Greens Plus. That's going to really take them down and mute them. The first one's just going to adjust it a little tiny bit. You'll see that small change there. But I would leave it at that. Let's do, next up is this image of my kiddos and their cousin and my sister at the beach, let's go ahead and put preset number 7 on it. So this is before and after with just the preset. So I'm going to want to bump up the shadows a little bit and maybe bring the blacks down. And then I want to show you a little bit about, so over here you're going to see these profiles. You can think of these as being like a layer in Photoshop where you can increase or decrease the opacity. So when you hover on these, you're not going to get exactly what you want. You're going to kind of see the basic tones. But I want to show you how to use these. So I'm going to click on, let's do this one. I like what it's kind of the richer tones that we're getting, but it's a little too strong. So I'm going to click on Profile 4, and you're going to see this pop up over here at the top. And you can just increase, you can mess with the amount that it's on. So I'm just going to adjust it to where I like it. Just a little bit of depth in there. Maybe bring my exposure up just a smidge. And adjust my clarity a little bit. Bring my highlights maybe up a tad. Just to give it that little bit of depth. Those profiles are super awesome. If you are familiar with working in Photoshop, you'll like these because they're very similar to layers, and you can adjust and tweak them as a whole, not just individual adjustments that you see in Lightroom. All right, so next we're going to move on to this image and show you these 3 presets I have here that are designed specifically for these really backlit images. This beautiful shot is from Nicole, and this is a really great example to show you. So I have these 3 here. You're going to have one that's more red, one that's more muted, and then one that's yellower. So let's start with that. We'll start with Golden Hour Dehaze 1. I'm going to increase the exposure a little bit. I'm going to bring down the blacks and increase the contrast. And that's about it for that one. So there's the before and there's the after. You can, I'm going to bounce over to these ones too real quick for you. And let's make sure this is reset. Okay, so again, these are backlit. They're different kind of backlight, a little bit lower towards their heads, so we're going to mess here. So obviously that one's a little bit too strong. I'm going to start here with this one that's a little more muted. I'm going to hit Dehaze 2. I'm going to do the lens correction here to get rid of that vignette since they are so close to the frame. And I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to go ahead and increase my exposure. I will likely bring down the texture to smooth out their skin just a little bit and go in and adjust you can go in and adjust the dehaze and the clarity according to how much you have in your shot. Don't be afraid to go in. It's going to be different with each image. I decreased the highlights a little bit. I want to warm it up just a smidge because this is morning light and it tends to be a little bit cooler at certain parts, especially during the beginning. So I'm going to warm it up there and leave it at that, really. So here's the before and here's the after. Maybe I'll bring the highlights down a little bit and actually bring the clarity down too. So before, after. Let's go ahead and do this image that is much more overcast. We don't have the sunlight streaming in really obviously anywhere. I would say my favorite for these kind of images that have a lot of green in them and that, the springtime grass, the summer grass. I love this preset 4. Here, what I would do here is bump up the shadows maybe a little bit, bring the highlights down. Let's bring those shadows back a tad. And then mess with the green tuning presets I have. As you can see, this one really mutes it, and this one just brings it in. It just changes the tones to be a little more yellow. But I'm actually really liking how they look without being adjusted. Honestly, I'd probably just keep it at this. before, after. All right, we'll do another overcast image. Let's kind of run through these. So that's a little too yellow. Again, there's that 4 with the greens. I love the reds there. Let's do 8. I don't think I've showed you this one yet. Okay, so obviously this needs a little bit of tweaking. So we're gonna go up on the exposure, bump up the shadows. Not quite so much. Maybe come down a little bit on contrast. One of the presets in here is going to be a sky recovery. This is essential. This preset and tuning is going to be great for images where you have a lot of sky. It's not necessarily going to be the best on a close-up portrait. You want to use this one for an image that's farther away, where the subjects are farther away. So I'm going to hit sky recovery. So that's going to bring down all those highlights that may have been blown. And this will vary from image to image, but you can see over here it pulled the highlights all the way down in the whites. So you will want to go in and do some tweaking. I would probably go up just a little bit more. Bring the blacks down just a little bit. And then I would go over to my profiles. I really love profile 1 just to give a little bit of a pop. Profile 1 is actually mimics one of my actions that I use in Photoshop all the time, and I'm using it less now that I have this in Lightroom. So profile 1, it just adds a lot of contrast, adds a little bit of pop, and again, you can adjust it through here. I kind of want to see these greens be a little darker, so I'm gonna go into my greens and adjust them myself. So anytime you see a color that you want more of or less of in here, your HSL and color tab are going to be where you go to. So here I can increase my greens or decrease them with saturation. So I'll increase them just a little bit. The luminance is going to make them lighter or darker. And then you can adjust the hue. So it's going to really change the tones of the greens, as you can see. And I like it pretty much where it started. You can also do this with your blues. Sometimes you have to be careful if your subjects are wearing blue jeans, obviously. We can increase the blue in the sky, bring it up, but it's also going to really increase his blue jeans, which I don't hate. I think it looks great. And then just your luminance is going to be your darkness and your light, so you can tweak it there. But that's about all I would do. Come back up to the top, maybe increase the contrast a little bit more, but I like it there. All right, next up are my guys. Let's do preset 6. Yep. So I'm going to bring the highlights down a little bit and bring the whites down a little bit. You can see it's really starting to blow in my youngest. It's kind of blown his cheeks out. And overall, it's a little bit too red and orange. So I'm going to mess with the white balance, not a whole ton. And maybe remove the clarity. You can see the vignetting again around the edges. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm going to take that off here because I don't really love it. And that's probably about it that I would do for that. Let's mess with this one. So sometimes these dehaze images can work really great on the kind of high overhead light. They definitely need some tweaking. So let's start with this golden hour dehaze 3. First thing we're going to do is bring the clarity down a little bit. And overall it's pretty purple. So let's add back some greens. Maybe take out a little bit of yellows. I am going to bring the contrast down just a little bit and then tweak my highlights. So here, I kind of like it like this. I like the muted, but let's say we want to add some greens back in. We're going to go again down to our HSL color tab, and you can increase here. Let's make them a little darker. And you will want to watch the edges, but like the edges as in right here. If I adjust them too much, you can kind of see it starts to get weird. So watch those. And yeah, so here's a before and here's an after. Let's do this final one. Computer doesn't like me right now. Okay. Again, just kind of breeze through here. Let's do 5. I love these warm ones, and it works for some images perfectly, and others you do, of course, need to tweak it a little bit. I am going to increase the contrast. I'm going to bring the exposure down just a little bit. Again, I like the warmth, but it's in the red, but it might be a little too much, so we're going to bring it down just a little bit. I'm going to bring up the shadows, add a little dehaze, maybe not so much, and adjust the lens correction. Let's add a profile onto this. Okay, so let's do profile 4. Obviously, this is not a one click. I'm gonna adjust. So I'm gonna bring my profile all the way down and just slide it up until I like the tones it's giving in the highlights. Yeah, I'd leave it there. Maybe bring it into Photoshop to do a little work, but that's really about it. If you guys have any questions or you want me to edit an image for you, please, of course, shoot me an email with a raw file and I will edit and video and show you how these work on them. I do have some more presets coming here soon. Black and white is my jam, so I have created some black and whites that still need some tweaking, but I'm obsessed with them. I think we did some really good, I've got some really good ones in here. A few of them are going to go away, but let's see. Let's show you on a few of these. So, some good stuff. These are coming soon.